Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. Selamat sore dan salam sejahtera untuk kita semua. Shalom. Om Swastiastu. Namo Buddhaya, salam kebajikan. May peace and blessings be upon us all. Kita pakai bahasa Indonesia atau bahasa Inggris ini? Kalau ngelihat dari wajahnya sangat menguasai bahasa Inggris, jadi little I can. Yang saya hormati dan saya banggakan para kader utama yang saat ini mengemban amanah bersama saya di Dewan Pimpinan Pusat Partai Demokrat. Pertama, Sekretaris Jenderal Bung Herman Hairon, tepuk tangan sekali lagi. Bendahara Umum Bung Irwan Veko. Profesor, if you do many claps, you will live longer. That is why everyone is clapping all the time. Hadir pula para pejabat teras yang tadi sudah disampaikan, tentu tidak saya bisa sebut satu persatu dengan tidak mengurangi rasa hormat. Tapi yang jelas spesial juga di sini adalah Ketua Dewan Pakar yang juga Kepala Institut Partai Demokrat, Bung Andi Malarangeng, beserta para anggota Dewan Pakar. So there are so many former ambassadors, former generals yang juga telah hadir bersama kita, para pengurus Dewan Pimpinan Pusat, dan juga wabil khusus sebagai inisiator acara sore hari ini, Kepala Brains, Badan Riset dan Inovasi Strategis Partai Demokrat, Bung Ahmad Khairul Umam. Pak Osi, Bapak Ibu semua, Kang Dede Yusuf, Pak Arfian Sahnur, Bapak Ibu sekalian yang saya muliakan. First and foremost, I would like to extend my heartfelt thanks to everyone here for joining us this important public discussion. A special welcome goes to Professor Paul Schuler from the University of Arizona. Thank you for being with us today. Welcome to Indonesia, welcome to Jakarta, and welcome to our headquarters, the Democratic Party in Indonesia. Today, I do not speak merely as a party leader. I speak as a citizen deeply concerned, yet deeply committed to the future of democracy in Indonesia and around the world. Today we must confront a difficult truth that global democracy is at crossroads. Democracy is under pressure, not just in newly democratized countries or those transitioning from authoritarianism, but even in places where democracy once seemed indestructible. Last month, I had the privilege of visiting Stanford University in Palo Alto, California, to participate in the Southeast Asia Summit on Prosperity and Sustainability. Following the main program, I engaged in in-depth discussions with several prominent American figures, among them former leaders and distinguished political thinkers such as Paul Wolfowitz, Condoleezza Rice, Professor Stephen Chu, Professor Francis Fukuyama, Professor Donald Emerson, and others. One of the most striking takeaways from these conversations was their shared and growing concern about the trajectory of democracy in the United States. A concern not only for America's future, but for the stability of the global democratic order. For decades, the US was seen as the global champion of democratic values. Its institutions were followed by global democracies. Its elections were admired, and its global leadership gave shape to a post-Cold War defined by liberal norms, rule of law, and human rights. However, Freedom House stated that the resilience of US democracy is being put to the test. Moreover, in historic first, in the beginning of 2025, the US has been classified as backsliding democracy by International Institute for Democracy and Electoral Assistance, IDEA. Analyzing 45 years of indicators in 166 countries for their annual report on global democracy. On the other hand, the Economic Intelligence Unit's EIU 2024 Democracy Index also showed that the US score remained unchanged and the US continues to be classified as a flawed democracy, ranked 28th. It remains to be seen if historical checks and balance will remain in force and serve to improve or worsen in the US ranking in 2025. Much of their assessment pointed to growing challenges facing the US democracy, such as increasing political polarization, concerns over electoral trust, and the gradual decline in the quality of public discourse. In the events of January 26, I repeat, January 6, 2021, when the US Capitol was penetrated, were deeply unsettling for many around the world. For global observers, it raised serious questions about the resilience of democratic institutions, even in the oldest and most established democracies. When democratic norms appear vulnerable in Washington, D.C., the ripple effects are felt globally, from Eastern Europe to Latin America, West Africa to Southeast Asia. Allies may grow cautious, while authoritarian actors may feel emboldened. In such moments, the credibility and influence of the democratic model are inevitably tested. Ladies and gentlemen, so what about us here in Indonesia? We have much to be proud of. Since 1998, we have emerged from authoritarian rule to become one of the world's largest democracies. We've had free and fair elections. We have witnessed peaceful transitions of power, and we've built institutions that once felt impossible to imagine. But we cannot be complacent, because today we too are facing a crossroads. Let me speak clearly about three key challenges, each of which is weakening the democratic foundations we've worked so hard to build. First, identity politics, politik identitas. Indonesia was founded on the principle of Bhinneka Tunggal Ika, unity in diversity. Yet too often we see diversity weaponized in campaigns. Elections, both national and local, are marked by the manipulation of ethnics, religious, and regional identities. Fear is used as a campaign tool. Communities are divided, and politics becomes a contest of us versus them, not a conversation about policy or vision. This must stop. Setuju? We must strictly enforce our democratic commitment against identity-based campaigning. And above all, we must invest in civic education, that teaches young Indonesians the value of tolerance, pluralism, and shared humanity. Our diversity is our strength, not a weakness to be exploited for political gain. Number 2 is money politics, politik uang. Let us be honest. In too many corners of our political system, democracy has become a marketplace. Votes are bought. Public office becomes an investment, not a calling. And leaders are chosen not for their ideas, but for how deep their pockets are. Katanya ada integritas, kapasitas, sama isi tas. That's the reality of our politics today. Setuju ya? This issue, this problem distorts representation. It silences capable, honest candidates. And it turns voters into consumers of patronage rather than agents of change. We need to reform campaign finance regulations, introduce real-time, publicly accessible donation disclosures, establish spending caps, and reward clean political parties with state subsidies and media access, not just those who spend the most. And number 3, last but not least, post-truth politics. Politik yang memecah belah karena disinformasi yang dilancarkan secara membabi buta. In today's digital age, lies spread faster than the truth itself. Social media platforms, without regulations and responsibility, amplify hoax, hate speech, fake news, and character assassination that divides families, communities, and nations. We saw in the past elections, hoax, conspiracy theories, character assassinations. All of it undermines trust. And without trust, democracy weakens. We need a national digital literacy campaign. We need legislation that regulates algorithmic amplification without silencing freedom of expression. We need to support independent, fact checkers and ensure political advertising online is transparent on who paid, how much, and why. Democracy is not just about who wins. It's about whether people believe the process was fair, informed, and real. Ladies and gentlemen, if we are to defend democracy, we cannot afford half measures. We need bold reforms. We need political parties that are open, transparent, and merit-based. We need public institutions that serve people, not protect only the elites. And we need leaders who put the country before their own ambitions. As chairman of the Democratic Party, I do not stand above those problems. I stand within them. I recognize our responsibility not only to compete in the elections, but to elevate the democratic process itself. We must be the first to reform from within, and the first to protect what truly matters, that is trust in the system. To everybody, especially to the youth, the civil society actors, and the faith leaders, including the journalists and everyday citizens, I invite you to join in this mission. Let us reimagine what democracy can be, not as a system of slogans, but as a system of justice. Not as a ritual of voting every 5 years, but as a relationship between people and power. Let history remember that when Indonesian democracy was tested, we did not retreat. We transform, we reform, and we rise together. May our unity be our strength. May truth guide our steps, and may the will of the people forever shape the future of our great nation. Thank you. Wassalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh.